Humanity has changed its tools far more quickly than it has changed its consciousness. We have crossed oceans, split the atom, mapped the human genome, built machines that speak, and sent instruments beyond the edge of our planetary neighborhood. We can look backward through billions of years of cosmic light. We can move money across continents in seconds. We can build systems so vast that no single person can fully see them. And yet, somewhere beneath this extraordinary civilization, an ancient human impulse remains remarkably alive, the desire to stand above another human being. Long before modern finance, corporations, central banks, or digital networks existed, power had simpler forms. It was land, grain, armies, temples, bloodlines, crowns. Those who controlled the necessities of life could command those who depended upon them. The language was explicit: obey the king, serve the Lord, honor the hierarchy, fear the gods, know your place. Perhaps such structures once emerged partly from necessity. Ancient societies faced famine, invasion, disease, scarcity, and uncertainty on a scale difficult for modern people to imagine. Centralized authority could organize irrigation, armies, food storage, and enormous public works. But what begins as organization can become identity, and what begins as authority can become appetite. Over generations, power ceased merely to be something people used. It became something people desired for its own sake. To command another person could make one feel larger. To possess what others needed could make one feel indispensable. To belong to a hidden circle could create the intoxicating impression of being fundamentally different from ordinary humanity. Thus, one of civilization's oldest illusions was born. If I stand above others, I must be greater than they are. Kings disappeared, yet the psychology of kingship did not. Aristocracies weakened, yet the desire for privilege survived. Ancient temples faded, yet human beings continued building invisible altars to status, wealth, secrecy, exclusivity, and control. This is why old symbols remain so fascinating. Masks, initiation rites, hidden rooms, elaborate ceremonies, privileged circles, ancient imagery, none of these necessarily prove anything sinister. A ritual may be art, theater, tradition, symbolism, or simple eccentricity. The more interesting question is not what mask someone wears, it is why human beings remain so attracted to the feeling of being set apart. There is nothing inherently profound about secrecy. There is nothing inherently enlightened about exclusivity. An ancient symbol does not become wise merely because it is ancient, and darkness is not depth. Sometimes a ritual is only a ritual. But when ritual reinforces the belief that a small group possesses a higher status than ordinary people, something much older begins to appear beneath the modern clothing: the ancient division between those who command and those who are commanded. That distinction deserves examination because power has changed its instruments. The ancient ruler possessed land. The modern institution may possess capital. The ancient gatekeeper controlled grain. The modern gatekeeper may control credit, employment, information, infrastructure, or access to markets. The ancient sovereign could constrain the body directly. Modern economic systems can sometimes constrain choices without issuing a single command. This does not make capital evil. Capital is one of humanity's most useful inventions. It allows savings to become factories, research, medicine, housing, transportation, art, technology, and businesses that did not exist before. It allows strangers to cooperate across enormous distances. Properly functioning markets can distribute decision-making far more widely than ancient command economies ever could. Money can be freedom stored in symbolic form. That is precisely why its corruption matters. There is a profound moral difference between saying, "Because I possess capital, I am free to choose," and saying, "Because I possess capital, I am entitled to determine the choices of others." The first is liberty, the second is domination. Civilization advances when it learns to distinguish the two. This distinction becomes especially important when we consider money itself. Modern money is one of the strangest and most beautiful acts of collective imagination humanity has ever created. A dollar is not valuable because the paper possesses magical properties. A digital bank balance is not wealth because electrons carry intrinsic purchasing power. Money works because millions of strangers share confidence in a system. Behind every ordinary transaction lies an extraordinary invisible agreement. I accept this because I believe someone else will accept it tomorrow. In that sense, modern currency is built upon trust, and nowhere is this more consequential than in the United States, whose dollar occupies an exceptional position in the global financial system. The American monetary system is far more complicated than the popular phrase printing money suggests. Physical currency, the banking system, treasury operations, commercial credit creation, and the Federal Reserve's monetary policies interact in ways that are difficult for most citizens to follow. The Federal Reserve already publishes substantial information, balance sheet data, monetary policy decisions, meeting minutes, economic projections, audited financial statements, and other disclosures. That matters. But disclosure and transparency are not always identical. A system can technically publish enormous quantities of information while remaining functionally opaque to the people whose trust sustains it. If understanding monetary creation requires navigating thousands of pages of specialized terminology, institutional accounting, bank mechanics, collateral frameworks, emergency facilities, and interactions between fiscal and monetary authorities, the information may be public while the system remains psychologically distant from the public. This is not an argument for destroying monetary institutions. It is an argument for making trust worthy of itself. The greater the power of an institution, the greater should be its willingness to be understood. A trustworthy monetary system should not merely say, "Trust us." It should increasingly be able to say, "Look for yourself." Show clearly how liquidity enters the financial system. Show where it goes. Show which institutions receive extraordinary support during crises and under what conditions. Show how risks are transferred. Show how monetary expansion and contraction affect different layers of society. Show the balance sheet in forms ordinary educated citizens can understand. Explain uncertainty rather than hiding it behind technical confidence. Make conflicts of interest visible. Make exceptional interventions traceable. Let independent scrutiny become a source of legitimacy rather than something institutions fear. Transparency is not the enemy of authority. For legitimate authority, transparency is its strongest armor. Secrecy may protect power temporarily, but transparency protects institutions across generations. This principle extends far beyond central banking. The future cannot simply be a more technologically sophisticated version of the ancient world. We cannot call ourselves advanced merely because our towers are taller, our computers faster, our weapons stronger, our fortunes larger, and our spacecraft capable of reaching other worlds. A civilization should be measured not only by what it can control, but by how little control it needs to impose upon human beings. Perhaps that is the deeper evolution awaiting us. The ancient mind asks, "How many people obey me?" The mature mind asks, "How many people can flourish without needing my permission?" The ancient ruler asks, "How can I preserve my power?" The mature leader asks, "How can I build something that remains just even when I no longer control it?" The insecure elite asks, "How can we distinguish ourselves from ordinary people?" The wiser person eventually discovers, there are no ordinary people. Every stranger contains an interior universe inaccessible to us, a childhood, memories, grief, affection, fear,
imagination, private hopes, and an entire history of consciousness. To reduce such a being to labor, consumer, voter, follower, debtor, subordinate, demographic category, or unit of economic behavior is not merely cruel, it is intellectually primitive. The great mistake of power has always been to confuse the ability to influence human beings with the right to possess their choices. They are not the same, and perhaps those who possess extraordinary wealth or influence have the greatest opportunity to understand this.
Imagine the cultural power of an elite that no longer needed mystique. Imagine institutions powerful enough to welcome scrutiny. Imagine wealth that measured its greatness not by how many lives depended upon it, but by how many lives became independent because of it. Imagine leadership that regarded autonomous human beings not as a threat, but as its finest achievement. That would be genuinely revolutionary. Not another secret room, not another ancient symbol, not another hierarchy disguised as enlightenment, not another system in which a few claim to understand what everyone else must simply trust. Those things are old, very old. Humanity has performed variations of them for thousands of years. The future should be more imaginative. Perhaps the highest form of power is not domination at all. Perhaps it is the capacity to possess enormous power without needing to prove it through another person's submission. Perhaps the highest form of wealth is not the ability to purchase influence, but the freedom to create without depriving another person of freedom. Perhaps the highest form of leadership is to make oneself progressively less necessary. And perhaps the highest form of civilization is a society in which increasingly fewer people must kneel, economically, politically, intellectually, or spiritually, in order to survive. There is something deeply beautiful about that possibility. Humanity does not need to destroy everything inherited from the past. Ancient cultures gave us extraordinary art, philosophy, architecture, mythology, mathematics, and wisdom. We can preserve their symbols. We can study their rituals. We can walk through their temples and feel the presence of thousands of vanished years. But we do not have to inherit their hierarchies of consciousness. The past deserves remembrance. It does not deserve permanent authority over the human mind. We have carried the psychology of domination for long enough. The next great human achievement may therefore be quieter than a rocket launch and more profound than another technological revolution. It may begin when power ceases asking how to make people manageable, when capital ceases confusing dependency with success, when institutions discover that being questioned does not diminish their dignity, when monetary systems recognize that public trust is not an inexhaustible resource, but a relationship requiring continual honesty, when those with extraordinary influence stop needing ancient symbols of separation to feel extraordinary, and when human beings finally understand that another person's freedom does not diminish their own. We have already learned how to send machines toward the stars. Now we must learn something more difficult, how to stand beside one another without constructing a throne. Let the old crowns remain in museums. Let the ancient masks become art. Let rituals become memory rather than instruments of hierarchy. Let capital create rather than command. Let money circulate through systems that can withstand the light. Let institutions earn confidence through transparency. And let those who possess great power discover a truth far more elegant than domination. Power becomes most civilized at the moment it no longer needs another human being to kneel. Perhaps then our consciousness will finally arrive in the century our technology has already entered. And perhaps, for the first time, humanity will not merely possess the tools of the future, it will deserve them. It is time to bring human consciousness into the present age.